12-32, but cannot lose. Yeah, the Raptors are a competent team. Oh, yeah, because of Scottie and the Vets.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Friday, January the 24th, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley, who is very sorry for making you listen to my Elton John singing before the podcast started. I am not Elton John, as it turns out, but I have been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 11 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on Blue Sky. You can also just join our Locked On Raptors Discord server. Link in the description of the podcast. It's free to join. Great place to come hang out with pals, talk ball, all that good stuff. This morning, just talking about the merits of various fast food chains. A wonderful place to be among friends. You can also, of course, find us on Instagram as well. You can also please go support the daily Locked On Raptors newsletter. We are moving close to 1,500 subscribers over there, which is awesome. I love you all. You're very swell. I love writing little blogs for you every single day. Please go keep on making it happen and join the wave by subscribing. You can go to the QR code on the screen and click through there, or you can go, if you're not watching on YouTube, to the link in the description of the podcast to go and sign on up. Just drop your email on the line, and it'll send you the newsletter to your inbox every single day for the low, low price of On the House. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And we'll get started here talking about a Toronto Raptors 122-119 win over the Atlanta Hawks in their first of two games down in Atlanta over the course of 3 days, and lots to like in this one from the Raptors. We're going to get into Scottie Barnes and the veteran guys on this team who are just mere days from certainly being traded, really coming together and making this team all kinds of competent right now. We'll also do a little Toxic Positivity Friday, where I get into the most toxic take you could possibly have right now, which is winning some games is fine, actually. We'll do that. We got the good, the bad, and the coming up later, but let's talk about Scottie Barnes and the Vets, baby. Bruce Brown in this one, incredible. 18 points, 5 boards, 4 assists, his third straight really strong performance. You've got Kelly Olynyk once again doing the thing, 11 points, 4 boards, 5 assists, 3 of 4 overall. Super efficient, just getting it done. He went out of this game with a calf injury, which is not great if you've been enjoying watching Kelly Olynyk play. Maybe it's good if you're hoping the Raptors start losing some more games here. And it kind of throws into question what's going to happen with him at the trade deadline. But overall, good stuff from Kelly in this one. And even like Chris Boucher, Davion Mitchell, the other two guys who are most likely to be traded before the deadline, continue to put in really good work. Chris Boucher in this one, 17 points, 7 of 10 from the field, 2 of 4 from downtown, doing his fun little thing as well. And then Davion Mitchell, I thought, deserves some flowers for this one too, specifically with his defense. You know, he had more personal fouls than shots attempted, but that is the Davion Mitchell experience. He had 7 dimes, and he played some damn good defense for long stretches of this game against Trae Young, and that was great to see. And watching all of these very nice veteran players just kind of make things work for this team, in particular Kelly Olynyk and Bruce Brown, with the way they performed and the way they've kind of tied these second units together, given real credible second unit looks that make sense and have court balance and geometry that is sort of, you know, conducive to success in the modern NBA. It really is just hammering home how important and valuable types of guys like that are when you're trying to nurture and bring along a young team. And I think the way we've seen Scottie Barnes play of late is it's not a coincidence that he's getting kind of back to what he was doing earlier in the year in that 10-game stretch after he came back from his orbital bone injury, where he was winning minutes and driving positive play and was just fantastic in sort of a two-way, multifaceted sense. We're seeing him get back to that, and I think it is not a coincidence that he's doing it while they finally have some health at the back end of the roster and like a supporting cast that is helping to shepherd him along. We've seen this all year with the Detroit Pistons. Young players are more liable to take leaps when they're playing with competent adults who know how to play the damn game. And for the first part of this season, the Raptors were rolling out a whole lot of rookies, like a quarter of their minutes or more were being played by rookies through the end of December. And that has since changed, and they've gotten more competent as a result. And yes, they're winning games. Yes, they've won 4 of 5. Yes, they are at risk of falling out of the top 3 when it comes to lottery odds. We'll get into that a little bit later. But I do think the way Scottie Barnes is playing right now, it is just unquestionably a good thing to me. And it's being helped shepherd along by the veteran guys who are just kind of making this whole team make sense. And look, Gradey Dick's playing really good basketball. RJ Barrett's filling his role beautifully. Jakob Poeltl was fantastic last night. We know the main guys for this team are capable of pretty good stretches of good ball, but to have guys coming in off the bench who just kind of give some integrity, some structure to what you're doing, it makes a world of difference. And again, we're seeing it with Scottie Barnes. We should talk about Scottie in this game. 25 points, 6 boards, 3 assists, 8 of 17 from the field, 1 of 2 from downtown. And he only had 1 steal when it comes to defensive counting stats, but I thought he was masterful defensively in this game. And it was, kind of even down to the last possession of this one where the Hawks are down by 1. Trae Young takes a 3, maybe ill-advised that it rims out, and there's an offensive rebound. DeAndre Hunter drives in from the left wing, and guess who was there with the big stop at the rim to save the game for the Raptors? It's Scottie Barnes, and he was doing that routinely throughout the night. Just this beautiful back line of help defense and length and deterrent. And I've continued to talk about it all year. It's been one of my sort of hobby horses this season. Not enough is being made of the defensive leap Scottie Barnes has made. Look, he was a good defensive player last year. There's no doubt. He became this stocks machine. He was racking up crazy counting stats. But the way he's affecting team defense this year is just way beyond anything he's ever done in his career before. And it's like top of the league, all NBA defense level stuff. And he's not going to make an all defense team. There's no way. The team's defense is too bad. You don't make all defense when your team is ranked 27th in defense. But with Scottie Barnes on the floor, they're more than competent. And he is just like this massive agent of impact when he's out there. The Raptors this season are 6.5 points per 100 possessions better on defense when Scottie Barnes plays versus when he's off. That is a 91st percentile on-off differential for defense per clean the glass. He's one of the top 10% players in the league at impacting defense when he's on the floor. And it's just so obvious. It pops off the screen. And it very much did last night. He got it done with the scoring, and that's huge too. The way he's able to kind of now make this mid-range offense of his a place where he can affect games late, big clutch buckets from really difficult spots on the floor that is the province of stars. That's all wonderful stuff. But the way he's affecting defense is just as impressive. And to me, I don't think there's been a single year-over-year leap in a Scottie Barnes skill or area of the game as substantial as his defensive leap from last year to this year. He's been ridiculous. And as they kind of fill in the roster with more capable defensive players, and we've seen it even with Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk, who's having like crazy defensive impact right now, bafflingly so, but it's happening. And you're kind of seeing it with the way he's just kind of old manning his way to defensive results, kind of bear hugging balls, poking balls free, that type of stuff. Like when you put some sort of defensive structure around Scottie Barnes, he's able to thrive and be this mess cleaner, this everyman who really raises the floor of your defense. When he's been on the floor this year, the Raptors have what would rank as like the 12th or 13th best defense in the NBA. When he's off the floor, they are sub-wizards. They are the worst defense in basketball. There's a huge swing. And since the start of January, it's even more pronounced. They are currently a 111.1 defensive rating team in Scottie Barnes' minutes in 11 games in January. That would rank them just on the fringes of the top 10, 10th or 11th, based on my last check. I just had a mini meltdown there. Sorry about that. When he's off the floor in January, the Raptors have 128.7 defensive rating, a 17.6 point swing when he's on versus off. Scottie Barnes, defensive difference maker. It's awesome. And again, the growth we're seeing from him of late, where he's driving winning minutes again, he's looking the part, if not as a number one and a contender, then certainly as a guy you're very happy to be paying max money to be one of your best players as you try to go become a relevant perennial playoff team. Like if he's going to be doing that, like it's huge. And I don't think this is happening if not for the sort of coherent basketball environment he's playing in. And the veterans are doing a great job in sort of helping to shepherd things along with him. That's not to say he still can't have good success once these guys inevitably get traded, but it's going to be harder for sure. And we've seen the formula for this team to lose a lot of games, which is even when Scottie's playing, even when RJ's playing, even when Gradey and Jakob are playing, if you have a lot of rookies playing minutes for you, you're probably going to hemorrhage points in pockets of games that cost you big time. And that's going to be the reality down the stretch of the season. But for now, enjoy what Scottie Barnes is doing with a supporting cast that is really fitting around him. And I do think this is pretty important going into next year, right? The Raptors are likely to trade some of these guys. There's no doubt. And they probably should. Like Chris Boucher, Bruce Brown, Davion Mitchell in particular, I'm happy to, if the Raptors go and move them for whatever they can get as expiring guys who probably are not in the long-term plans of the team. That's just smart when you're a bad team that is making the most of what you've got and kind of owning the fact that you're bad. Kelly Olynyk, I think, forcing a deal for a second-round pick at this year's deadline when you can probably get the same or more next year when he's expiring, I'm less in a rush to trade him, especially considering the sort of space he provides and, the healthy environment for Scottie Barnes minutes he offers. The Raptors are winning the minutes with Scottie and Kelly together pretty substantially at this point. That's been awesome to see. I don't need Kelly Olynyk out of the door by the time the deadline comes around necessarily, unless there's maybe they get a first rounder if he's playing really well. Like if that happens, then sure. But the main point I'm trying to get to here is if you do trade most or all of these veterans, you have to go into next season with some intent to replace them, whether it's with guys you bring back on money you're bringing back in deals for Bruce Brown or Boucher or Mitchell or whomever. Maybe it's a guy like I pitched on yesterday's show, the crossover I did with Wes and Brendan from Locked On Heat and Locked On Suns. If it's Terry Rozier or Tobias Harris as like a salaried landing spot that you end up being in the midst of a Jimmy Butler trade facilitation, then having those guys for next year who will be expiring next year, you can kind of do the trade at the deadline thing once again. But having those guys would be super valuable. We've seen it with the Pistons. Once again, to circle back to them, the team that I think the Raptors should really be trying to be going into next year, making a jump from the bottom up to the play-in, or in the case of the Pistons, kind of on the fringes of the playoffs right now. Like that should be the goal here for this team next season once they've been infused with whatever high pick they get. And they have to have in mind the importance of veterans. You can't just have a bunch of first and second year guys running around out there. If you want to be competent and coherent, you got to have some vets, man. And I know I sound old, I sound like a boomer, but it's just true. It's just how basketball has worked for the longest of times. It's just when you have guys who are adults who know what they're doing, you're going to have more successful and more progressive and developmentally friendly basketball as well. So if you're going to trade them, which they should, you've got to find a way to bring some more in, a la, Tim Hardaway Jr. or Tobias Harris in the case of the Pistons this past summer. Malik Beasley as well has been lighting it up there too. Anyway, we're coming back to the other side and we're going to get into Toxic Positivity Friday, where I, again, get real toxic and talk about how winning is cool and good, actually, and not really something to be worried about, even for the tankiest of tank brain people out there. We'll get to that coming up in just 1 second. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. That's fun. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate and has a variety of bets to keep every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Once again, for you nervous Bills fans going into your weekend matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs, let me advocate the happiness hedge. Put some money on the Chiefs to win, like they're probably going to, because life is unfair. And if they do win, at least you get some money out of the deal to sort of soothe your pain and mend your wounds with. And if the Bills win and you lose your bet, you're not going to be upset because you're going to be jumping through flaming tables, baby. Go visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Back at it here on your Friday edition of Locked On Raptors, talking about a Toronto Raptors 122-119 win over the Atlanta Hawks, a frantic-ass basketball game that I had a whole lot of fun watching, and even more fun because they won. That was cool. And so, yeah, let's get to Toxic Positivity Friday, as we always do here, where we put up the blinders to all the things that are bad going on with the 12-32 Toronto Raptors basketball team and talk about the stuff that's making us happy. And right now, winning 4 out of 5 games with a couple of nice wins in there. Beating the Warriors was fun. Beating the Celtics ruled. Beating Trae Young's deeply annoying ass last night. Had a great time watching that. Winning is the thing that I am celebrating at the moment. And it's because it's fleeting that I'm enjoying it so much. This is not going to be the norm for the rest of the season. I really, really doubt it. Even with a really tough schedule, or sorry, really easy schedule down the stretch, tough schedule if you're trying to hemorrhage wins and lose a bunch of games. But it's like an easy schedule down the stretch, but still, with what they have between now and the start of March, and the fact that the deadline is probably going to see them say goodbye to some very valuable and important veterans, and they're probably going to move into more of a sort of, oh, your knee's a little wobbly. Okay, we'll sit you down for 4 days. Or, oh, you have the sniffles. Okay, you're going to sit this game out kind of mode. Like, this is not going to be how the Raptors close out the season. I think the Michael Grange piece from yesterday really kind of highlighted that the Raptors know exactly what their situation is. They know where they are. They know they're prioritizing the draft. And just because they're winning a few games now doesn't mean that that has gone out the window. Yeah, they're winning a few games right now. Enjoy it while it's happening, because the things that are happening to cause them to win these games, Gradey Dick really finding his niche as an off-ball sort of third, fourth, fifth option guy who is just a wonderful play finisher and an agent for space and movement in your offense and gravity. That's fantastic, especially considering, we'll get to a little bit later, some of the defense is looking maybe not so miserable with him right now either. You're seeing Scottie Barnes, most importantly, doing the damn thing. And like, if you're going to win games because the guy you're paying a max contract to is playing like he's worth a max contract, I'm sorry, that's one of them good problems. And yes, it might affect the lottery standings. They might end up 5th or 6th in the odds as opposed to 3rd in the odds. It is such a crapshoot in the lottery, and it is so stacked against you as to whether you're actually going to get one of the couple picks that history says if you get one of those, you're cooking. I just think you can't like just sort of overanalyze every single win and knock it down as something that's ruining your tank, quote unquote. You can only control what's happening like for you in front of you. And like, if your good players are doing good things and winning basketball games because of it, like, I don't see how that's a bad thing, especially considering, like I said, this is not going to last. They're 12-32, number one. They're really bad. I don't know if you know this. They're still very bad. They are 3rd right now in the lottery standings. Perfectly fine place to be. It puts them right in that top 3, which is, top 3 basically has all the same chances of top picks, whatever. It descends from there, but it's still, again, the odds are so stacked against you no matter where you are of you getting what you actually want. You have a 14% chance at best of getting Cooper Flag. You can't let mid-January wins change the way you're approaching a season, and you can't let those wins get you down, man. Like, it's good that Scottie Barnes is playing the basketball he's played over the last little bit, because it means really important, good things for the long-term future of the franchise. And whomever you draft, joining a team with this version of Scottie Barnes, you can feel pretty good about that, even if it would be great if Cooper Flag were the guy. No doubt. I want Cooper Flag. He's awesome. I'm also not selling my soul for a 14% chance at best at Cooper Flag. You just let the lottery do its thing. There are lots of exciting players in this draft. There are lots of interesting fits with the Raptors in this draft. And again, they're still probably going to lose like 60 games when all is said and done anyway, because once you get to the deadline, which is now less than 2 weeks away, you're likely saying goodbye to Bruce Brown, who's doing a whole lot to help win games right now. You're likely saying goodbye to Kelly Olynyk, or maybe you're saying goodbye to Kelly Olynyk and his calf injury keeps him out and they're careful with him down the stretch. One or the other. I don't think you're seeing heavy Kelly Olynyk like we have over the last few weeks here down the stretch, because like his whole thing is making teams that are trying to tank a little too good to do that. You have, Davion Mitchell, who, for all his faults as an offensive player, has been really effective defensively and has had a really good on-off impact defensively. And if he's going to walk, that probably makes the 27th ranked defense in the NBA even worse if they're going to move him by the deadline. And maybe some team out there is looking for that sort of defensive energy 10th, 11th man that Davion Mitchell can very clearly be on a decent team. Obviously Chris Boucher has been a huge spark plug that's given a lot of wins to the Raptors of late, just because when he goes on a heater and scores 20 points in a matter of minutes, like, that's going to help you win some basketball games. All of these guys, or most of these guys, are probably going to be out the door inside 2 weeks. So if you're really fretting all these wins right now, don't worry. The rookie heavy minutes are coming. We've seen the formula that sees this team lose a whole bunch of games, and it's giving a quarter of the minutes or more to rookies. And we're going to see a ton of Jacoby Walter down the stretch. We're going to see a ton of Jonathan Mobo down the stretch, both of whom have been pretty bad of late and are going to lose minutes because that's what rookies do. We're going to see more Jameson battle. We're going to see two-way guys getting in there. We're going to see a whole lot of Jamal Shed running point. This is all going to happen. Just because it's not happening now doesn't mean you need to pull the chute, bench everybody, and start losing games on purpose in the middle of January. That's not what serious basketball teams do. Those are the teams that we point and laugh at. The Utah Jazz right now are a joke. They're an absolute joke of a franchise with very little in the way of young, interesting players to count on going forward. And they just keep on doing this perpetual cycle of trying to suck on purpose. And look where that's getting them right now. If you have interesting young players who you can get some positive developmental progression done with in the middle of January, that's great. And also, like, where were we a month ago? Where were we 3 weeks ago? At the end of December, the team has lost, what was it, like 15 games in a row? I can't remember the exact number. It was a whole lot of freaking games in a row. Like, at that point, the concern was, oh, Scottie's not a guy. He's cooked. He stinks. He's bad. Emmanuel Quickly, vastly overpaid. We'll see about that one. He's barely played since then anyway. But, Darko Rajakovic, is he the guy for this team? Is he going to get fired by the end of January if they don't win a game? Like, this was the concern a while ago. And I did a show at the very start of January when Quickly got back. That was essentially, hey, like, this next couple months, this is the time to see what's actually here. This is the making up for lost time at the start of the year when we thought we were going to get to see this whole group together. It came late, and it actually kind of set up a situation where they can have their cake and eat it too, where they've already banked a whole bunch of losses. And on top of that, they get this little pocket before the deadline, and the sort of just the way the schedule goes probably initiates some engineered losing. But you get this little pocket to see, are there actually things worth liking here? Are there things worth building on? And I think it's been a resounding yes. In the month of January, there are things to build on here. There are exciting young players. There are guys who are making steps. There is a spot for RJ Barrett as a third or fourth option who really fits in. There is maybe some defensive upside to tap into with Gradey Dick that's been hard to find so far. Like, there's a lot to like. Jamal Shed is like seemingly a guy at this point. He's hitting every three he takes, last night notwithstanding. He's doing all kinds of productive things that rookie guards typically don't do. And we're getting to see that because the team is trying to play real basketball for a stretch here before it all, just because of the way the schedule goes and the way the league works, will probably go to crap post deadline because veterans help you win and they're not going to have as many on the team. And so enjoy it for now, man. If this was a whole stretch, a whole month of losing after an entire month of losing in December, we'd be sitting here wondering, what are they even adding to this team with a high pick? What is Cooper Flagg doing to salvage this garbage fire of a team? That's not the case anymore. That's a good thing. Enjoy the small wins. 4 wins in 5 games is not going to change your life dramatically in the tank standings. And look, some teams are just going to be worse than the Raptors. Some teams are more shameless. The Jazz are shameless. The Wizards are hopeless. Like, you can't control for other teams that are just worse than you. If you have good players, you're going to win some games. And the Raptors do have good players. And that's not to say they don't need more, right? I think they should be angling for a high pick as they have been all year. I'm just not sweating the difference between second in the odds and sixth in the odds all that much in a flattened lottery world where most of it is entirely out of your control. And so for now, I'm enjoying the dubs, baby. I'm enjoying beating Trae Young in a game where that sees Scottie Barnes and Gradey Dick and all of these guys get like legitimate late game clutch reps. We're seeing the team kind of figure itself out in clutch moments. This is great. This team stunk in the clutch for the first 3 months. They're actually having some success there and winning these close games they were losing earlier in the year. That's progress. That's good. That's a nice thing in the grand scheme of things. And it's not going to derail things because, like I said, the losses are going to come and all the little tank piggies will be num, all those losses. And they'll be very happy when the Raptors finish like 23-59 anyway. So yeah, like if you can't enjoy a game like last night, go be a Chicago White Sox fan. Go be a Wizards fan. That apparently is the thing you're looking for. We'll come back on the other side. We're going to get into the good, the bad, and the from the game against the Atlanta Hawks. We'll get into Gradey Dick looking real good. We'll get into Jacoby Walter looking not real good, and a little more to close up the show. We'll get to that coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by Talkspace. Therapy is a game changer. It can help manage stress, improve sleep, and help you communicate more effectively with those in your life. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace is the leading virtual therapy provider and makes getting the help you need that is easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within 48 hours, and it's convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your home and even message your therapist between appointments. That's a very big deal. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans, and for most insured members, there's a $0 copay. So it's never been easier to prioritize your mental health. As a listener of this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNBA and enter the promo code SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNBA and enter promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show your support for the show. That's Talkspace.com/LockedOnNBA, promo code SPACE80. Go check them out. Wrapping it up here, we've got the good, we've got the bad, we've got the the way we wrap up every episode of this year podcast on the heels of a Toronto Raptors basketball game. A thing I liked, a thing I didn't like, and a thing that's got me a wee bit intrigued about the latest in Raptors hoop. The good for me, there's lots to choose from here. Jakob Poeltl's crunch time moments were really excellent, hitting those 2 big free throws down the stretch. Very cool. We talked about Davion Mitchell and Kelly Olynyk and Chris Boucher and Bruce Brown. They were fantastic. I'm going to give it to Gradey Dick, though, who I kind of alluded to earlier. This was as good a two-way game as we've seen from Gradey Dick, kind of occupying his idealized role within this offense. And it seems as though he has shaken the exhaustion that was very clearly weighing him down in late December into early January. And I think it's just a matter of he's kind of occupying a role that's befitting of his talents right now, right? He's not taking 22 shots a game out of necessity. He's taking 10 shots a game. And when he's doing it, they're good looks. They're created from advantages that others are creating for him as opposed to him having to do it his damn self. And he's dunking a bunch. We love that. As a guy who's had a hard time finishing at the rim, no better way to finish at the rim than to yam that crap down. That's great. I think, we saw last night just sort of it's just he's such a simple fit with good players or any players, right? He makes life easier on offense. He's still the guy who drives the biggest offensive swing when he's on the floor versus off on the team, and it's by a mile. Like, he's just a really effective offensive player, even when he's not doing a ton. And when he's in that sweet spot of taking 10 to 12 shots a night, and the shots are coming to him within the flow, and he's, again, kind of getting passed open by other guys, he's a really, really effective player. And then I think defensively in this game, he looked pretty damn good. He had 2 steals and a couple times where he kind of danced with Trae Young and warded off his drives. Not an easy thing to do. And in fact, a couple times Gradey Dick had Trae Young on him and completely dog walked him into wide open space as Trae Young just kind of stood there watching him go by. Like, Gradey Dick, better defender than Trae Young. We're on the road to progress, baby. I thought Gradey was awesome in this game. 15 points, 3 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals, 6 of 10 overall. Even though he shot 1 of 5, don't care, from downtown, that is. He was hitting his 2s, which is a beautiful thing. 5 of 5 on his 2s. Great stuff from Gradey. The 3s will come around. The 2s, that's a longer work in progress, but some nice progress there made last night. The bad for me, I'm going to go Jacoby Walter because he's looking pretty green in his recent minutes. And in this one, very foul. He had 3 very quick fouls in this one. He's just kind of missing. He missed a mid-range shot. That's typically kind of his bag. He missed a 3 and, just not doing a ton to affect anything out there. He's just kind of out there in his minutes. Played just 7 minutes in this one, to be fair. Didn't get a ton of run, but I think that's because of late. He's just looking pretty rough. That said, he's looking very nice in the G League, and that's been nice to see him get some reps down there, and I'm sure he's going to be better for it. And, if you're someone who, again, is concerned about the tank, once they start trading some of these guys, guess what? If they trade Davion Mitchell or they trade Bruce Brown or both, guess who's getting a lot of those minutes down the stretch? It's going to be Jacoby Walter. And he might do some fun things in those minutes, but he's also probably going to lose those minutes because rookies lose minutes. That's just kind of the universal rule. And so, if he's looking poor, looking green right now, it might actually be a bit of a blessing in disguise. As I think we've seen a lot from Jacoby this year to suggest there's a pretty good player in there if everything all comes together. Obviously, everything coming together is no guarantee for any young player, but the flashes have been really interesting. And, you live with the lumps, you live with the pain, and hopefully what he's doing in the G League gives him some more confidence down the stretch once they get into the post-deadline world and he's probably playing some heavier minutes like he was earlier in the year. For me to close out this show. And this is, look, we're at the point now where anything I'm talking about sort of schematically or tactically with this team, it's going to be a fleeting take because the roster is going to change. Things are going to kind of devolve, I think, probably down the stretch after this little spell of looking competent and winning games. But I do think the sort of it's beginning to become time to question whether or not the Raptors defensive system is maybe the best way to go and optimize what they've got in terms of individual defensive talent, which is, hey, truth be told, not a lot, right? There's not going to be many defensive schemes that optimize what this team does. And because this team has Davion Mitchell and Jamal Shed playing a lot of minutes, like I understand the whole high pickup point, really nasty point of attack defense thing. We're going to make life hell for ball handlers. I understand that being the ethos of the defense. I really do. I also don't know if kind of a guard-focused defensive system is really going to bear a whole lot of good results. And look, the results don't matter this year, right? You're just looking for process. You're looking for things to grow on. I still haven't seen a whole lot with the defense outside of Scottie Barnes' individual defensive brilliance, which I'll get to and kind of how it plays into my thoughts here in a sec. But I just think outside of that, it's not been a team that's kind of shown, hey, we have some sort of big defensive leap within us or anything like that. And I don't think the system they're playing defensively is necessarily helping them out all that much as it's taking advantage of what Mitchell does well. You know, there are still times where it's just there's limits to playing a type of defense that kind of requires you to fight over every screen like it's the end of, like you're fighting for your life, right? Guards are really effective. Screening is effective. Lots of very good screeners in the NBA. And I do think there's maybe some room for the Raptors to experiment some. And I think I would like to see them kind of play around with switching more on defense. And you might say, Sean, switching kind of requires a bunch of guys who are good individual defenders, right? So you can't go and get picked apart with individual mismatches. That's true. I also think the Raptors have so little good defense, like individual defense on the team, that it almost is like a cover for that if you're more of a switch heavy defense, because at least you're kind of limiting the gaps that offensive players can punch through if you're just switching and you're kind of maintaining your defensive shell. And I think we saw this last night down the stretch. Trae Young got cooking a little bit. He got to the floater game a bunch. You know, the threes, you know, they're ill-advised and ridiculous at times and totally meme threes at times. But like once he's cooking, especially in that pick and roll with that floater game, it's pretty tough to stop. And I think he kind of went away from it a little too easily last night. I think he was kind of giving Davion Mitchell fits in the last 5 or 6 minutes of this game, just gaining separation from his man, getting into that range in the floater range. And he picked up a foul once, hit a couple hit a couple floaters off glass over the defense, whatever. And I think if you're switching there, and we saw this also happen on I think it was the Bogdan Bogdanovic 3 later in this game, where RJ Barrett and Davion Mitchell just totally got their signals crossed and they didn't switch. And you had a wide open bogey 3 as 2 went to Trae. And it seemed like there was a bit of a miscommunication there. I think if you just kind of go in with a base, hey, we're switching everything kind of system, and it doesn't have to be their defense all the time. You don't have to be the Celtics, but experiment with it, right? Like if this is a year for trying stuff out, I would like to see them play with some defensive coverages that are different than just a guy on ball, play real hard, right? And I think if they can experiment with some switching stuff, I think because Jakob Poeltl is so like nimble at the point of attack. Like he had a couple sequences last night of, you know, dancing with Trae Young and a really nice double team with RJ Barrett late in this one too, where those guys just kind of ranged out, forced the ball out, and they got a miss out of it. But I think Yak has shown like he is a pretty nimble big man, even if he's prone to getting blown by sometimes. For the most part, he can at least offer some resistance at the point of attack against most opposing ball handlers. And so if you're going to switch that and have Scottie Barnes as this sort of mess cleaner at the back, where if a bad matchup does transpire when you're switching and Gradey Dick gets blown by or Jakob Poeltl gets blown by, but you have Scottie Barnes there waiting at the back end, because I promise you teams are not going to be eager to bring Scottie Barnes into screening actions, because him switching onto guys will be death to them. And so, you know, if you have Scottie more just kind of lurking near the rim to clean up any guys who do leak through that shell, I think that can be a way to optimize what Scottie does and also just kind of limit the team's issues with perimeter defense, because so much of their issues with perimeter defense right now are guys just having trouble with screen navigation. Just cut out the screen navigation part, switch things more often than not, live with the blow-bys that might happen, and know you have Scottie Barnes, the one-man wrecking crew at the back end there, to help out, or Jakob Poeltl, who I think is a nice help defender as well in those situations. And so it's just a theory. Again, the team's going to be different, and what their sort of optimal defense should be is going to change as well. It's just something I kind of thought of last night watching the Raptors have some trouble with Trae Young down the stretch. And I just wonder if they kind of limit the gaps, limit the ability for teams to just sort of take advantage of that little micro thing where, you're going over the screen or you're navigating through and or maybe you're in drop defense or whatever it might be. And those little pockets of space that pick and roll offense creates when you're not just straight switching. I do wonder if the Raptors can kind of clean that up a little bit and get some more out of their defense and sort of make it a greater than the sum of its parts thing if they just switch and offer help if there are blow-bys. But that's all I got. We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for hanging out and rocking with the show. We'll be back again tomorrow. Not tomorrow. It's a weekend. Monday. Talk about the game 2 against the Atlanta Hawks on Saturday. Look ahead to Raptors Pelicans on Monday. Good stuff on deck. And I appreciate all of you for rocking with the show, for rocking with the newsletter. Please go subscribe. The QR code is on the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, you can go to the link in the description of the podcast as well. And we will talk to you again on Monday. Another episode of Locked On Raptors. Thanks for hanging. Bye-bye. Big week for me. 3 for 5.